Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Alain Delon is one of the most iconic figures in European cinema, renowned for his striking looks, enigmatic screen presence, and a career that made him an international symbol of French cool. Born on November 8, 1935, in Sceaux, France, Delon's path to stardom was anything but traditional. After a difficult childhood marked by his parents' divorce, he spent time in strict boarding schools and later served in the French Navy during the First Indochina War. Upon returning to France, he drifted through various jobs before his natural charisma and magnetic appearance caught the attention of filmmakers. Rise to stardom. Delon's breakthrough came in the late 1950s, when Italian director Luchino Visconti cast him in Rocco and His Brothers 1960. This film established him as a serious actor with depth, capable of embodying vulnerability and intensity. Soon after, he collaborated with French auteur René Clément on Purple Noon 1960, where he portrayed Tom Ripley in an adaptation of Patricia Highsmith's novel The Talented Mr. Ripley. The role showcased his chilling ability to merge charm with menace. In the 1960s, Delon became the epitome of European cinematic sophistication. His collaborations with director Jean-Pierre Melville, such as Le Samouraï 1967, and Le Cercle Rouge 1970, remain landmarks of French cinema. As the cool, stoic hitman Jeff Costello in Le Samouraï, Delon created an archetype that influenced generations of filmmakers, including Quentin Tarantino, John Woo, and Jim Jarmusch. International career. Though primarily rooted in European cinema, Delon also ventured into Hollywood with films like Once a Thief 1965, and Texas Across the River, 1966, but he never pursued a full-time American career. He preferred the artistic freedom of European directors, working with legends such as Michelangelo Antonioni in Lakelease, 1962, and Joseph Losey in Mr. Klein, 1976. Personal life and controversies. Delon's life off-screen has often been as dramatic as his roles. He was involved in high-profile romances, most famously with Romy Schneider, with whom he shared a passionate but turbulent relationship. His image as the quintessential French lover made him both adored and controversial. Delon also faced legal troubles and media scrutiny, including being linked, though never convicted, in the 1968 Markovitch affair, a scandal involving the mysterious death of his bodyguard Stephen Markovitch. Despite these controversies, his popularity remained immense. Legacy. By the 1980s and 1990s, Delon's career slowed, but his stature as a cinematic legend only grew. In 2019, he was awarded an honorary Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival for his contributions to film, though the honor stirred debate due to criticism of his personal views and past statements. Still, Delon's place in film history is secure. He remains an icon of style, masculinity, and mystery. His chiseled features, impeccable fashion sense, and aura of melancholy defined the image of the European leading man for decades. Delon has influenced actors, filmmakers, and fashion designers alike. The minimalistic elegance of his characters, especially in Le Samouraï, inspired countless reinterpretations in cinema and pop culture. He stands as one of the rare actors whose screen persona transcended borders, making him both a French national treasure and an international legend. Early life and formative years. Alain Fabien Maurice Marcel Delon was born into a middle-class family, but his childhood was unsettled. His parents divorced when he was young, and he was sent to live with foster families, strict Catholic schools, and eventually into military service. These early experiences gave him resilience, a rebellious streak, and an independent outlook that shaped both his personal life and his screen persona. After serving in the French Navy during the First Indochina War, he drifted through jobs as a butcher's assistant, waiter, and delivery boy. His striking good looks drew attention in Parisian social circles, and by chance, he met people in the film industry who encouraged him to try acting. Rise to fame in cinema. Delon's early performances were quickly recognized by critics and directors who saw in him a new kind of male star, icy, mysterious, and devastatingly handsome, yet capable of deep emotional expression. Rocco and His Brothers, 1960, directed by Luchino Visconti, this tragic family saga established Delon as a serious actor. His portrayal of Rocco, a morally torn young man, showcased his emotional intensity. Purple Noon, 1960, as Tom Ripley, Delon combined charm with ruthless ambition. The role made him internationally famous. L'Eclisse, 1962, in Michelangelo Antonioni's modernist masterpiece, Delon's pairing with Monica Vitti embodied the alienation of the era. The Leopard, 1963, another Visconti classic, where Delon played Tancredi, a charming opportunist navigating Italy's social changes. By the mid-1960s, Delon was one of the most famous actors in Europe, embodying both romantic allure and existential cool. The Melville era, the cool assassin. The collaboration with Jean-Pierre Melville defined Delon's most enduring screen image, the cold, meticulous anti-hero. Le Samurai, 1967, Delon's Jeff Costello is a contract killer who lives by a strict code of discipline. The minimalist performance, stillness, silence, precision, became legendary. The film influenced modern crime cinema across the globe. Le Cercle Rouge, 1970, another crime classic, where Delon played a jewel thief entangled in fatalistic destiny. Un Flic, 1972, his final collaboration with Melville, again highlighting his ability to portray men of silence and shadows. These films cemented Delon as the archetypal lone wolf, a figure of honor, alienation, and fatalism. Later career and mature roles from the 1970s through the 1990s, Delon expanded his range, sometimes playing against type. Borsellino, 1970, a gangster saga co-starring Jean-Paul Belmondo, one of the most popular French films of its time. Mr. Klein, 1976, a haunting performance as an art dealer in Nazi-occupied France, highlighting Delon's dramatic depth. Notre Histoire, 1984, won him the César Award for Best Actor, France's highest film honor. Delon later slowed down his acting work, preferring selective appearances and focusing on his businesses, including a perfume and fashion empire under his name. Personal life and image. Delon's off-screen life was as fascinating as his career. Romances. His relationship with Romy Schneider remains legendary in European pop culture. They were considered the golden couple of 1960s cinema, and their separation left a mark on both of their lives. Family. Delon had several children, including actor Alain Delon. His family life has often been turbulent, but he remains close to his children. Scandals. The Markovitch Affair, 1968, involving the mysterious death of his bodyguard, created a lasting shadow, though Delon was never found guilty of any crime. Public persona, known for his sharp opinions, pride in French culture, and sometimes controversial political statements. Delon has been both admired and criticized. Philosophy and worldview. Delon has often described himself as a solitary man, shaped by discipline, survival, and a sense of honor. He admired the Japanese code of the samurai, which is evident in his film choices. He once said that loneliness and melancholy were companions of his life, reflecting the existential undertones of his most famous roles. cultural impact fashion icon. His style, slim suits, trench coats, and effortless elegance, remains influential in men's fashion. Cinema influence. Filmmakers from John Woo to Jim Jarmusch cite Le Samouraï as a key inspiration. Symbol of French cinema, for decades. Delon represented France abroad as much as Brigitte Bardot or Catherine Deneuve. Legacy. In 2019, despite controversy, he received an honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes, honoring his lifelong contribution to cinema. Later years. In recent years, Delon has lived largely away from the spotlight, in semi-retirement at his estate in Switzerland. He has battled health issues but remains a revered figure. Despite criticisms and controversies, his image as the last great star of European cinema's golden age endures. Essential filmography and their significance. Early career highlights. Christine, 1958, his first major role, opposite Romy Schneider. Their on-screen chemistry blossomed into a real-life love story that would define part of his personal and public life. Rocco and His Brothers, 1960, a turning point, playing Rocco. Delon captured the tragic conflict between family loyalty and personal ambition. This role earned him international acclaim. Purple Noon, 1960, his portrayal of Tom Ripley introduced the world to Delon's talent for playing morally ambiguous characters with unnerving charm. The Antonioni and Visconti years. Lakeleys, 1962, with Monica Vitti, Delon embodied modernist alienation, a film of silences and unspoken desires. The Leopard, 1963, playing Tancredi. He symbolized youth, change, and opportunism in Visconti's grand historical epic. The Melville crime masterpieces. Le Samouraï, 1967, perhaps Delon's defining performance. Jeff Costello, the silent hitman, became a cinematic archetype of existential cool. Le Cercle Rouge, 1970, a near-perfect heist film, with Delon as a master thief caught in a web of fate. Unflick, 1972, his final work with Melville, an icy police thriller where he plays a detective, offering a mirror image to his earlier criminal roles. Other notable roles. Borsellino, 1970, a stylish gangster film pairing Delon with rival and friend Jean-Paul Belmondo. Their chemistry made the movie a massive box office hit in France. Mr. Klein, 1976, one of his most acclaimed dramatic roles, as a Paris art dealer in Nazi-occupied France who is mistaken for a Jewish man. The film became a meditation on identity and complicity. Notre Histoire, 1984, a late career highlight, winning him the César Award for Best Actor. Face mask style of acting. Delon's acting is marked by minimalism, few words, restrained gestures. Maximum impact. Presence. He didn't need theatrical flourishes. His looks and aura commanded the screen. Duality. He could be the romantic lover, Christine, La Piscine, or the existential killer, Le Samouraï. Fatalism. Many of his characters live under the shadow of destiny, reflecting Delon's own worldview. He had the rare ability to embody both vulnerability and menace, making audiences both sympathize with and fear his characters. Handshake collaborations. Directors: Luchino Visconti, Michelangelo Antonioni, Jean-Pierre Melville, René Clément, and Joseph Losey. Actors: Romy Schneider, Jean-Paul Belmondo, Monica Vitti, Claudia Cardinali, Burt Lancaster. His partnerships with Melville and Visconti are considered among the most artistically significant in European cinema. Red Heart. Romy Schneider and his loves. Delon and Romy Schneider met on Christine, 1958. Their romance became legendary, a union of two European stars. Though they separated in the 1960s, their bond endured. When Romy died in 1982, Delon was devastated and openly emotional. a rare moment of vulnerability from a man often associated with stoicism. Other notable relationships included Nathalie Delon, whom he married, and who starred with him in La Samurai, Marais d'Arc, and Rosalie van Bremen, with whom he had children. Balance scale controversies and scandals. Markovitch affair, 1968. The mysterious death of his bodyguard Stephen Markovitch tied Delon's name to scandal. Though never convicted of wrongdoing, the case followed him for decades. Politics and opinions. Delon has often spoken candidly, sometimes sparking backlash for his conservative views. His outspoken personality has divided public opinion but never erased his cinematic stature. Wilted flower philosophy and persona. Delon has described himself as a man drawn to solitude, discipline, and honor, qualities aligned with the samurai code. He often played characters who lived by strict personal codes, reflecting his fascination with existential questions. He once said, "I don't regret my life, but if I had to live it again, I would live it differently. Less intensely, perhaps. But it is too late now." This melancholy runs through his career, making him not just a star but an emblem of existential loneliness. Crown cultural legacy. Fashion. Delon's slim suits, trench coats, and timeless style influenced men's fashion for decades. Cinema influence. La Samurai directly inspired directors like John Woo, The Killer, Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, and Nicholas Winding Refn, Drive. International symbol. Alongside Brigitte Bardot and Catherine Deneuve, Delon embodied French elegance abroad. Awards. His honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes, 2019, cemented his role as a cinematic legend, though it stirred controversy due to his personal statements. Sunrise. Later years. Delon largely retired from acting after the 1990s, focusing on business ventures, including fragrances and fashion. He lives privately in Switzerland, battling health challenges but still admired. In his twilight years, he has spoken openly about preferring a dignified death, echoing his lifelong embrace of solitude and stoicism. Alain Delon remains not just an actor, but a myth. A man who embodied beauty and danger, romance and fatalism. The last great star of French and European cinema's golden age. A figure who continues to influence cinema, fashion, and the very idea of what it means to be a movie star. Alain Delon, A Life and Career Timeline 1935 to 1950s. Early life and turbulent youth. November 8, 1935. Born Alain Fabien Maurice Marcel Delon in Sceaux, France. Childhood marked by divorce and strict boarding schools. Known as rebellious and unruly. Served in the French Navy during the First Indochina War. Military discipline left a permanent imprint on his worldview. Worked odd jobs, butcher's assistant, waiter, delivery boy, after service. Discovered by film circles in Paris due to his striking appearance. 1957 to 1960. Entering cinema 1957, makes his screen debut in Quand la femme s'en mêle. 1958, stars opposite Romy Schneider in Christine. Their love affair begins, captivating Europe. 1960 breakthrough. Rocco and His Brothers, Visconti. Right-pointing arrow showcases dramatic depth. Purple Noon, Clément. Right-pointing arrow international fame as Tom Ripley. 1960s. International stardom 1962 Lakely's Antonioni. With Monica Vitti. Right-pointing arrow modernist classic. 1963 The Leopard, Visconti. Right-pointing arrow Cannes-winning historical epic. Delon's charm as Tancredi wins global acclaim. 1964-65 attempts Hollywood films, Once a Thief, Texas Across the River. But chooses to remain primarily in Europe. 1968 stars in La Piscine with Romy Schneider, right-pointing arrow, a sensual, psychological thriller. 1967 career-defining role. Le Samurai, Melville, right-pointing arrow. Delon becomes an archetype of the stoic, solitary anti-hero. Late 1960s to 1970s, peak and scandal. 1968 Markovitch affair. His bodyguard Stephen Markovitch is found dead. Delon questioned but never charged. The scandal dominates French headlines. 1970 Borsellino with Jean-Paul Belmondo, right-pointing arrow, box office smash, cementing Delon as France's top star. 1970 Le Cercle Rouge, Melville, right-pointing arrow, another masterpiece in crime cinema. 1972 Unflick, right-pointing arrow, final Melville collaboration. 1975 stars in Zorro, gaining wide popularity abroad, especially in Asia and Latin America. 1976 Mr. Klein, Joseph Losey, right-pointing arrow, one of his greatest dramatic roles, exploring identity under Nazi occupation. 1980s awards and later success. 1984 wins César Award for Best Actor for Notre Histoire. Becomes one of Europe's highest-paid actors, while also launching successful business ventures, perfume, eyewear, fashion under his name. Known as a perfectionist and selective in choosing roles. 1990s, transition and semi-retirement, appears in fewer films, focusing on business empire. 1990 stars in Nouvelle Vague, Jean-Luc Godard. Gradually withdraws from the spotlight, becoming a mythic figure in French culture. 2000s, present. Later years. 2008 celebrates 50 years in cinema with tributes and retrospectives. 2019 receives honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes for lifetime achievement. Controversy surrounds the award due to his outspoken views. 2020s, battles health issues, lives in Switzerland. Occasionally gives interviews reflecting on his life. Has expressed preference for a dignified end, aligning with his lifelong code of honor and solitude. Face mask key themes of his life and work, the outsider persona, both on screen and off. Delon embodied the lone wolf, disciplined, melancholic, and often fatalistic. Romantic myth. His love with Romy Schneider is still remembered as one of cinema's most iconic romances. Scandal and survival. The Markovitch affair could have ended his career, but instead, it reinforced his image as mysterious and untouchable. Cultural icon. Defined the image of the European male star. Stylish, dangerous, seductive. Influence. Inspired filmmakers worldwide. His style echoed in Drive, The Killer, and countless noir thrillers. Glowing star legacy. Considered the last great European movie star of the mid-20th century. His style continues to influence fashion houses and menswear. His characters set the standard for the modern anti-hero. His life story, beauty, scandal, solitude, became inseparable from his screen roles. Alain Delon, the last samurai of cinema. Alain Delon is more than an actor. He is a paradox, both adored and controversial, both intensely public and fiercely private. Both a screen idol and a solitary man. His name evokes not only cinema but also an entire era, the age when stars were not just performers but living myths. The face of an era. Few actors have been so defined by their appearance. Delon's face, sharp cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, a perfect jawline, seemed sculpted for the screen. In the 1960s, photographers compared him to a Greek statue brought to life. Jean-Pierre Melville, who directed him in Le Samurai, once said Delon's beauty was a mask, hiding melancholy. He was often described as l'ange blonde, the blonde angel, or le fauve, the wild beast, terms that captured the duality of his allure. An angelic surface concealing a dangerous intensity. The roles that defined him. Delon's genius was not in theatrical flourishes but in silence. He could say more with a stare, a gesture, or the way he lit a cigarette than most actors could with entire speeches. His most enduring characters were men of codes, killers, thieves, soldiers, who lived on the margins of society. In Le Samurai, 1967, he became the template of the existential hitman, precise, cold, and governed by discipline. His Jeff Costello was more than a character. He was an archetype that would echo across cinema for decades. In Mr. Klein, 1976, he embodied the nightmare of mistaken identity under the Nazi regime, revealing his gift for drama beyond style. In The Leopard, 1963, his Tancredi represented ambition and opportunism, youth as a force of change, seductive yet ruthless. Each role reinforced the image of Delon as a man set apart, caught between charm and danger, love and fatalism. Romy Schneider, the eternal love. Delon's private life was just as captivating. His romance with Austrian actress Romy Schneider became one of Europe's greatest love stories. They met on Christine, 1958, and quickly became inseparable. Though their relationship ended, their bond endured until Romy's tragic death in 1982. At her funeral, Delon placed a rose on her coffin and whispered, "You'll never know how much I loved you." That gesture remains one of the most poignant images of his life, the cold screen assassin undone by real heartbreak. Shadows and Scandals. Delon's legend is inseparable from Scandal. The Markovitch Affair, 1968, the mysterious murder of his bodyguard, thrust him into a storm of speculation, mafia rumors, and political intrigue. Though never charged, the scandal added a permanent shadow to his image. He was also unafraid of controversy in his statements, speaking bluntly about politics, society, and his personal code of honor. This frankness made him divisive, revered by admirers, criticized by opponents. The Samurai Code. Delon's fascination with Japanese samurai philosophy was not a pose, it was a worldview. Discipline, solitude, honor, and inevitability defined both his characters and his own life. He embraced the loneliness of the outsider, the man who lives by his own rules. This is why his performances feel authentic. He was not simply acting. He was projecting his own philosophy onto the screen. The man in solitude. In his later years, Delon retreated into near solitude at his Swiss estate. He has openly spoken of melancholy, of feeling like a man from another age. He has also faced serious health struggles, but even in vulnerability, his aura remains untarnished. He once said, "I've lived like a beast, loved like a madman, and worked like a soldier. I have no regrets, but I am tired. Very tired." These words echo the weariness of his screen characters, men who lived intensely, then paid the price in solitude. Legacy. The last great star. Alain Delon is often called the last great movie star of European cinema's golden age. His influence extends beyond film. Fashion. His effortless style continues to inspire designers, from slim suits to classic trench coats. Cinema. His image resonates in directors like Quentin Tarantino, John Woo, Wong Kar-wai, and Nicolas Winding Refn. Cultural memory. For France, he embodies a time when actors were untouchable icons. In 2019, when he received the honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes, the audience gave him a long-standing ovation. For all his controversies, the world recognized him as a living monument of cinema. Alain Delon today, now in his twilight years. Delon is less an actor than a legend. The face of an era, the model of the anti-hero, the romantic and the samurai, the angel and the beast. His life has been a story of beauty, scandal, love, and solitude, a story as cinematic as the films that made him immortal. Sparkles. Alain Delon is not just remembered. He is mythologized. Alain Delon in Context Globe compared to global icons Cary Grant. Grant was the model of suave charm and elegance in Hollywood, where Grant represented wit and lightness. Delon represented silence and danger. Grant's characters were social creatures, Delon's were solitary wolves. Marlon Brando. Brando embodied raw, rebellious American masculinity. Delon, by contrast, embodied a European masculinity of restraint, style, and fatalism. Where Brando exploded with emotion, Delon drew audiences in with minimalism. Jean-Paul Belmondo, in France. Delon and Belmondo defined two poles of stardom. Belmondo was rugged, playful, the everyman adventurer. Delon was polished, mysterious, the untouchable aristocrat of cool. Their joint film Borsellino, 1970, became a cultural phenomenon precisely because they were opposites. Clint Eastwood, Eastwood's Man with No Name, shares DNA with Delon's Jeff Costello, laconic, cold, bound by a personal code. But Eastwood's Western figures were mythic Americans. Rooted in the frontier, Delon's anti-heroes were existential Europeans, wandering modern cities like ghosts. Marcello Mastroianni was charming, ironic, a man of warmth and humanity in Fellini's world. Delon was cooler, more statuesque, a figure of beauty tinged with melancholy. Right finger in short, Delon fused Hollywood star charisma with European modernist alienation, creating a persona that had no exact parallel. Face mask. The dual faces of Delon. Delon's power lies in duality. The Angel in Christine, 1958, or The Leopard, 1963, he radiated youthful beauty and romantic allure. His relationship with Romy Schneider amplified this Prince of Love image. The Beast in Le Samouraï, 1967, or La Piscine, 1969, he embodied coldness, jealousy, violence. His real-life scandals reinforced the darker side of his myth. This angel-beast tension is why audiences could never fully define him, and why his legend endured. Sunglasses. The Delon-style clothing, slim-cut suits, trench coats, crisp white shirts. He looked equally at home in tailored elegance or casual Riviera attire. Mannerisms, slow movements, direct eye contact, economy of gestures. Aura, he projected detachment, as though he existed slightly outside the world around him. Fashion houses and designers, from Dior to Saint Laurent, continue to cite him as a muse. In fact, photos of Delon in the 1960s circulate endlessly today on style blogs, proof of timelessness. Heartbreak. The romantic myth. His relationship with Romy Schneider is central to his legend. Even after their breakup, Delon kept a photograph of her at his bedside. When she died in 1982, his grief was raw and public. France saw not the cold killer, but a broken man, and this vulnerability deepened his myth. Other loves, Nathalie Delon, Marie d'Arc, Rosalie van Bremen, shaped his life. But Romy was the eternal one. Together, they were the French equivalent of Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, though more fragile, more tragic. Balance scale. The scandalous shadow. The Markovitch affair, 1968, remains infamous. Though Delon was not legally implicated, gossip tied him to gangsters, politics, and sex scandals. This gave him an aura of danger off-screen, blurring the line between actor and character. Unlike Hollywood stars, who often carefully curated clean images, Delon seemed to thrive on this shadow. As if controversy only reinforced his myth of fatalism. Film projector cinematic legacy. Delon influenced entire genres, neo-noir and crime thrillers. His minimalist, stoic killers inspired John Woo's The Killer, 1989, and Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive, 2011. Arthouse cinema, his collaborations with Visconti and Antonioni defined the European art film of the 1960s. Global stardom, he achieved fame not only in France but also in Japan, China, and Latin America, where his films were wildly popular. Wilted flower philosophy and mortality. Delon has often spoken of solitude as his destiny. He admires the samurai ethic, to live and die by one's own code. In interviews, he has admitted to fearing old age more than death. He once said, "I have known everything: glory, money, women. But in the end, life is nothing without solitude." This resignation, this embrace of melancholy, makes his twilight years feel like the natural extension of his screen characters, men who walk alone into the night. Glowing star. Why Alain Delon endures beauty as myth. His face became a cultural symbol of masculine perfection. Contradiction, angel and beast, lover and killer, star and recluse. Cinematic influence, his films remain touchstones for directors across the world. Cultural symbol, alongside Bardot and Deneuve, he is French cinema for an entire generation. Mystery, even now. At nearly 90, Delon remains elusive, unreadable, the eternal outsider. Sparkles. Alain Delon is not just remembered as a man, but as an idea, beauty edged with danger, elegance shadowed by solitude. A star who lived as if he were already a legend. Later career in shifting roles. By the late 1970s and 1980s, Alain Delon began transitioning from the roles of youthful antihero to more mature and authoritative figures. His performances carried the weight of lived experience, often portraying police commissioners, businessmen, or men burdened by moral dilemmas. Films such as Notre Histoire, 1984, directed by Bertrand Blier, showcased Delon's ability to dive into psychologically complex characters. For his role in that film, he won the César Award for Best Actor. France's most prestigious film honor, an acknowledgement of his evolution as a performer beyond his earlier, ice-cold, archetype. He also ventured into producing, taking greater creative control over his projects. His company, Audel Productions, allowed him to explore stories that aligned with his interests, giving him autonomy in a fiercely competitive industry. Personal image and style. Delon's image has always been inseparable from his screen persona. He was often called the male Brigitte Bardot for his stunning beauty, but where Bardot embodied sensual liberation, Delon carried a darker, more stoic allure. His style, simple tailored suits, trench coats, minimal expression, and piercing blue eyes, created a timeless masculine aesthetic. Fashion houses like Dior and Saint Laurent repeatedly drew inspiration from him, and even today, his photographs from the 1960s are studied as lessons in effortless elegance. Relationships and family. His personal life has been widely publicized, filled with passion, turbulence, and scandal. His most celebrated relationship was with actress Romy Schneider, with whom he starred in the 1969 cult film, La Piscine. Their romance, though ultimately ending in separation, became one of the most iconic love stories in European cinema lore. Delon later had relationships with Mireille d'Arc, Rosalie van Bremen, and others, and he has 3 children, Anthony, Anushka, and Alain Fabien, some of whom followed him into acting. Controversies and public persona. Delon has long been a polarizing figure. His bluntness, conservative views, and occasional controversial statements have sparked debates in France and beyond. While some criticize him for being outspoken or politically incorrect, others admire him for his unapologetic authenticity. He has admitted openly to flaws, mistakes, and regrets, which, paradoxically, only strengthened his myth as a man unafraid to reveal his humanity. honors and recognition. In addition to his César Award and honorary Palme d'Or, Delon has been recognized worldwide. His films continue to be screened in retrospectives, and young generations still discover his work through restored classics. Despite semi-retirement since the 2000s, he remains an enduring cultural reference. Legacy. Alain Delon's career spans more than 6 decades, and his cultural footprint is vast. He represents the golden era of European cinema while simultaneously embodying a universal archetype: the beautiful, solitary man with a mysterious soul. Directors, actors, and fashion icons continue to cite him as a key influence. His work with auteurs like Jean-Pierre Melville, Luchino Visconti, Michelangelo Antonioni, and Joseph Losey ensures his place in the pantheon of world cinema, even as he lives more privately in recent years. Often withdrawing from the public eye due to health concerns, his legend persists. For cinephiles, Alain Delon is not merely an actor, he is a cinematic mood, a style, a philosophy, and a mirror of Europe's post-war identity.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.